Yeah, I'm not gonna say that this one. Yes. Yes, it was. That's been our. I mean, Jackson, 2, 3 people on history. Right, yeah, which, yeah, that makes sense. Right. I mean, I think. Yeah. Sometimes I say the way I was. Yeah. But, you know. Yeah, it's something like that. That was this. You know, yeah, but then again, I noticed my brother and sister whenever they go with it. So I guess it's actual. I think it's just kind of like, you know, it's. Well, you know what? I've been thinking. I think something. Yeah, I was just kind of thinking of something. I don't think it makes more sense. This is a place for getting, then I can go to. Because yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, see where it opens up.
Yeah. Between she's been. Great.
Yes.
It's second. There was no like.
I hear good things about the. Bobo.
This one. What did you? Well.
Similar, yeah. But it's, yeah, it looks. Yeah. Even the puzzle. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Wait on this thing. He was. This thing on my. I was pulling over. I mean, what happened? I have no idea. No.
Oh.
It's.
Yeah.
You know, I'm around here, so I'm running down.
Another meeting, please stand to the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Second.
Can everybody hear? Everybody hear? Okay, just want to make sure. Microphones are on. Aye, any opposed? Right. We're public. If you could, excuse me, if you could please provide your name, address, limit your comments to 3 minutes or less until we have a chance for everyone to speak. And then if anyone would like to speak a second time, you're more than welcome to. There are 2 public hearings tonight about 2 possible changes to local laws. Those are public hearings. You certainly can speak about those now, but there's an appropriate time for the public to speak about those later on in the meeting if you wish to. And you can speak from your seat. You're welcome to come up to the podium wherever you feel most comfortable.
Good evening, everyone. Everyone can see me. My name is Alicia Stocklosa, attorney at Carter C. Preston Emery. I'm counsel for Don and Margaret Fiore, 383 Pond Road. The Fiores unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. They had a previously scheduled conflict, so I'm here on behalf of them. I understand that there is not going to be a vote on the short-term rental law tonight, but I have just a few comments to make, and I will keep my comments.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Of course.
Sure. So there's something on the agenda.
Right.
The town board just approved the agenda, so I'm not anticipating anyone making a motion and getting a second and creating a vote.
Right.
But I just want to clarify that.
Thank you. I obviously understand that. Thank you very much. I'm here tonight just to express some concerns with the substance of the short-term rental law as it's currently drafted and urge the town board to revise the draft law. First and foremost, the short-term rental law is currently drafted, essentially zones the use of short-term rentals out of the town. Regulating short-term rentals to downtown business area absolutely makes sense in the abstract. But when you look at the town zoning map, the draft law would prohibit the use of short-term rentals in approximately 90% of the town. The town passed a moratorium, the town board passed a moratorium on the issuance of special use permits for new short-term rentals in August 2022. And in January 23, voted to extend the moratorium until later this year in July. But to date, despite over 8 months since the moratorium, the town has not provided or publicly disclosed any information regarding any committee members who are examining this matter. Has not engaged in any studies to identify how short-term rentals may affect the town. Nor has it publicly referenced any third-party consultations regarding approaches taken by neighboring municipalities. So, for example, the town of Arundel, I believe, just previously revised its short-term rental law. In addition, the town has provided no information regarding the source of information it used to draft the law. For example, there's no indication that the town board sought statistics or other information to support excluding this use from the majority of the town. Before voting on a short-term rental law, we urge that the town consider statistics and other information, possibly considering the number of, or any local or county citations or complaints related to pending short-term rental applications within the town. Perhaps identifying the number of short-term rentals in neighboring municipalities with short-term rental laws. And comparing this number to the population density in those municipalities. Or considering the proximity of short-term rentals to neighbors. Certainly a property measuring 1 acre with a short-term rental on it in a densely populated neighborhood has more serious concerns than a short-term rental, say, on a 20-acre property with nearby neighbors. We strongly urge the town board to consider alternatives to the law as currently drafted, such as allowing short-term rentals in residential areas with a lower population density, or perhaps limiting the total number of short-term rental permits on an annual basis. Separately, section 236-8D of the law provides a rather vague application process. The draft law requires each short-term rental application to be reviewed by 4 separate town boards and provides little additional context as to how that review would occur. It's unclear whether the review of those boards would happen simultaneously, or if it would happen in incremental steps, and whether the recommendation of one board could grind that application process to a halt. Additionally, in the same provision, the law states that the town board may deny any application with prejudice. We urge the town board to adopt a more lenient repeat application process, perhaps as allowing an applicant to apply within the next 12 months to strike a balance to control the number of applications the town has to review with the desire of residents to rent out their properties. In conclusion, to the extent that the town does create a wider expansive committee to review these issues, my client Margaret Fiore would absolutely be interested in joining part of that committee. Thank you very much.
Anyone else who'd like to speak at this time? Yes, sir.
Yes, hi, my name is Tom Gift. I'm at 67 Cheese. I think the town board has been moving in the right direction with these proposed laws. And just to address a point made by the previous speakers here in terms of data gathering, it would seem to me that would delay things unnecessarily. A much better approach is to enact the laws and have a sunset provision, say, I'm going to be in place for 5 years. After 5 years, see how they work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, please.
Angela Hallett, 15 Hiram Way in Honey Falls. I missed the very beginning, so I don't know if we're just talking about short-term rentals or anything.
This is public comment.
Okay.
You talk about anything you,
My comments are some comments I wanted to make at the last meeting in regards to short-term rentals just in the business district. That's all I'm commenting on. Short-term rentals in the business district to me are going to be a business. This is completely separate from someone renting their home out. I'm in the process of purchasing a 6-bedroom house that's in the hamlet, very much in the business district, and is very much going to be run as a business. It's simply going to be a short-term rental. Some of the requirements in the draft code are going to be costly. I'm more than happy to abide by them, but I need the ability to have more guests in the house, especially because it's a 6-bedroom home. I could split the house into 2 non-short-term rentals, but just, lease it out more permanently as 2 separate units. So I'd like to know if there's going to be any language put into the code so that I could do the same thing and have 2 separate rentable short-term units in this 6-bedroom house, 3 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms. And if that were allowed, would I then be able to have 8 people and 8? Would it be allowed to have the whole house, maybe have a higher occupancy? If this house, which could obviously also be a residence, if it were purchased not by me and it were being a residence, I don't think it would have an occupancy limit. So I'm not sure why there would be an occupancy limit if it's in the business district and being run as a business. I looked at Pittsburgh and Victor short-term rental codes. They don't have an occupancy limit for their short-term rentals. So house size are adequate. I would like the ability to have more people so that it can be, a business that's supporting itself and we can have more people in the hamlet supporting the other businesses. Much.
Thank you.
My name is Webb Pilcher. I live on Pond Road. I like to do all the hard work you put into this process. I think it's been very fair. I think the approach the town has taken, keeping commercial enterprises in the commercial district is appropriate. I like Mr. Gibbs' idea of enacting the legislation and putting a sunset provision on it, 3 to 5 years, and establishing if there are concerns, establishing a committee to review how it's working. A beautiful night like this, as I came down Pond Road, I don't think we should delay in enacting this. Should keep countryside that we have exactly the same way.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
At the point where you have to have a lot of things in the final point. People and stuff. It's you. They're very happy today.
Anyone else?
My friend is parking down a circle, make my comment. Just couldn't go dash. What we saying?
Sorry, Wayne, I didn't hear you.
Oh, okay.
The last part.
What was your filter said?
Just close it, yeah.
And not repeat it all, just. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Anyone else? There is another, as I mentioned, there are two public hearings about specific items, and there's public comment at the end. Like to give your comments then. So move on to communications. Andy?
Highway department's fixing drainage off the house. There. Potholes on Bowsville Road. Majority of them. Small jobs over at Spray Park. Didn't start brushing. I went to county numerous times about some road work. Some concerned neighbors about what we're doing. Also, one problem in the same area. All that work looks like it's moving forward at the moment. So we're gonna redo an intersection on a county road, but it does have a budget now, so we received our CHIP funding. It's $11,280 more than last year, which probably doesn't come in fuel for big jobs.
On the highway website that talks about where you're at with brush pickup. I just know a lot of people have asked, how far they along are they?
We're halfway, which is 2 weeks or so, so we have another. Biggest part of town is probably getting close to finish up, and then we should get moving on it. This side doesn't seem to be as busy as the west side.
Thank you. Move on to Michelle.
All I got is taxes, they're about 96% completely clear. Done with payments as of now, so. Stragglers here and there, but that's about where we were last year also.
I have nothing.
Brett.
Planning board, last meeting had a special use permit. Over on Campfield Road, for the Campfield vet. It was an expansion of it. They're not adding more customers, they're adding another vet. To help lessen the impact that they have. It was also a site plan. Next meeting is on June 7th. They got a subdivision, proposed subdivision over on Mendon Center and Osmond Drive. Continued meetings with the building department. Lately, a lot of time I've been spending down at Spray Park, trying to get that to 100%. I would say, John, I think we're probably about 95%. Started on last Tuesday. It was pretty cold. Nobody ran through it. Tried to lure John underneath the bucket. And he wasn't going for it. So, but it's getting there. We're continuing. Sounds as though they're going to be doing the hydro seeding of the grass here. This week, which is, I wish they had already done it, but we're trying and we're pushing them the best we can. Had a meeting with supervisor, highway superintendent, deputy superintendent. Going to be doing that monthly as we move through a couple of transitions that we have talked about. Even through the budget and the buildings department. And I attended finance school tonight. Going back again tomorrow. Please don't miss me on anything that was there. I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Oh, and as Cindy will probably report too, we've been working on that fuel audit. I know Andy and I have on Cindy and Andy have on. That's set up so it's nice, simple, so it's we don't have to talk about it more than it needs to be talked about. Talked about it with somebody from the comptroller's office today too. He pointed me towards the guidance. So simple ways to do it. It's set up for us. And that is all I have for right now.
Historic preservation, we're discussing still the Taylor Road property, and there's been some requests to the group from the homeowner on Taylor Road. And then the other thing is Tom and I did the court audit last week, and we're all set with that.
Cindy?
Yep, with regard to the library, they did hire a new board member. To replace, Tim Bolt. Katie Corey is her name. And is in attendance at the last meeting on, a week ago. Very much engaged in what is going on and highly knowledgeable. The president's report was that several outreach activities are planned, trying to get more interest in the library and their activities. They'll be in the Night Carnival Parade again. They'll be at the Festival at the Falls in August and the Fall Weekend Parade. Also wanted to be sure that I made it known that they were very much appreciative of the resolution that we passed regarding the National Library Week. And that resolution is posted by their book display. Assembly member Jen Lunsford is scheduled to be at the library for a tour on May 11th, which is Thursday at 10 a.m. if anybody's interested in going. Hopefully getting some more funding for the library. Gearing up for summer reading program. It starts in June, the end of June 22nd and runs through August 11th. The adult and teen programs have been extremely well attended. And the library will be closed on Friday, May 19th for some training sessions for the staff. Between 9 and 1 and Saturday and Monday, May 27th and 29th. And then
Done?
Environmental Conservation Board met last Tuesday. They discussed a parcel off of Mendon Center, the corner of Mendon Center, top spin, dividing up a parcel into 4 parcels to be built on. They didn't come to any conclusion. They're gonna go do a site visit because it's like I think 3 lots there, one of them being wetlands, so they just want to check and make sure that doesn't affect it. Actually, it'll probably go to historic preservation. Great, so, but also we discussed, and I know you've been in conversations with Peter Carosa about, do we need to have posts like when they do, so they're gonna go to this lot out on Mendon Center Road, and you're probably gonna have a forum there, whether or not it needs to be posted because it's a public meeting or not. I think it was the conclusion of Peter and the board agreed that it is not a public meeting per se, it is a fact finding. I mean, as long as you don't discuss conclusions or anything wider there, then it doesn't have to be posted as public meeting.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Boyce.
Okay. Good. The other thing is, Mendon Youth Center. I had discussed a couple months ago the possibility of doing a open house for 6th graders. They will be eligible to participate next year. Just in talking to some of the parents, and talk to John a little bit. I think that's probably better done in the fall. We don't usually open until maybe end of September, beginning of October. So we've got that month. That way it'll be fresh in their fresh in their heads. We'll do it then. Other than that, what we discussed earlier a couple of months ago is the 25th will be the last day of the youth center being open this year. 25th. The first day before Memorial Day.
Right.
And it's been a great year. I mean, I think the attendance has been pretty decent. So that's it.
Thank you. I just have a couple of things. Jim Mursky, who is our deputy town supervisor, is going to be incapacitated, so I'm appointing Brett Rosick as deputy town supervisor from June 12th to July 31st. As Brett said, we were at finance school today. I think we were probably there about 15 minutes when I turned in and said I never heard that one before. So it's very informative. We're going back tomorrow. As many times as I've been to these things, you learn something every time you go. And one of the things they did talk about today is the fact that when they were doing Zoom type of meetings, participation fell off dramatically. And so they are in the comptroller's office and the Association of Towns are definitely moving back to in-person type of events. Because of that. And that concludes my communications. We'll move on to supervisor's monthly report.
And motion acknowledge receipt of the supervisor's monthly report for April 2023.
Second bill. Any discussion? Today was this, and everything that we provide the board. It's, by the law, adequate. Any other comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next, town clerk's monthly report.
I'll make a motion to acknowledge receipt of the town clerk monthly report for April 2023, showing receipts and disbursements in the amount of $8,470. Excuse me, $473.53.
Second.
Any discussion? Favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the regular town board meeting as presented. For April 10th and April 24th.
Any discussion? Favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Budget transfers.
Make a motion to approve the budget transfers for 2023 budget as noted in our agenda.
Any discussion? Favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next are vouchers.
Claims on vouchers numbered 23-290 to 23-381 on general abstract 23-05 in the amount of $138,806.14.
Discussion.
Just want to make note that we had a couple of pretty big ticket items. One, we had over $20,000 for employee and retiree benefits. Another one for Whitney East for the spray park for a little over $55,600. And then a much lesser one, but still a big expense, National Grange Insurance Special Items. Allocated for about $6,000.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Move on, or excuse me, go ahead.
The abstract, I should have done that, just recognizing that the library vouchers number 23-057 to 23-068 on library abstract 23-05 in the amount of $5,716.41 were presented to the town board for payment.
Next on the agenda is number 11. This is a public hearing regarding local law number 3, 260-61. This is omitting a sentence from that portion of the town code. The sentence that the board is considering omitting is if no decision is made within said 62-day period, the preliminary site plan shall be considered approved and the applicant so notified. I will open up the public hearing at 7:28. If you could please provide your name, address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less until everyone has a chance to speak. There a motion to close the public hearing? Any discussion?
I think this is something that our attorney brought up, our planning board attorney. So this language in here would unnecessary timeframe on preliminary site plan approval that's not required, but. So that we would take that burden off of the planning board, I guess that shot clock off.
Yes.
So what would the time be?
Should have to defer to Sheldon, that there is some language about a reasonable time
Right.
to do it, but it's not. a
What's
60
reasonable?
I would defer to our Gamble.
What's reasonable?
Reason.
Reasonable.
Yes. Any other, beautiful. We will move on to number 12, which is another public hearing. This is for local law number 4 under the code 260-24. This is an insertion into the code. That says a special use permit is not transferable to a new owner or a new person having interest in the land. The new owner or new person in having interest in the land shall be required to reapply to the planning board for a new special use permit. So I will open the public hearing at 7:30. If you'd like to comment, please provide your name, address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less until everyone has a chance to speak. Is there a motion to close the public hearing? Sorry. Any discussion?
This is something that talked about, planning board kind of brought this to my attention. You know, I used to be on the planning board for a number of years, and they talked about, you have two different types. There's a special use permit, and then there's a use variance. And a use variance generally carries with the land. Sheldon, I don't mean to speak out of school, but then a special use permit is kind of pretty much considered to carry with the person that applied for it and the land. So if one goes away, special use permit does not go away, but there are some attorneys that say that it goes with the land. Planning board chair asked me where this was in the code. I couldn't find it. We checked with the old code enforcement officer, our current code enforcement officer, and it was on the table located. So we said, let's get it in the code, get rid of any ambiguity. From my time that I was on the planning board, this is how we wrote all the special use permits. And we're saying what we do. That's what we're doing.
Can people apply for the special use permit as they're purchasing the land?
Yes, absolutely. A special use permit is something that's found to be generally compatible with the neighboring uses, but you need considerations needed across. And you know, sometimes the planning board is, we listen out those conditions, we read them right to the applicant, say, do you understand these? Do you have any problems with these? Now is the time to discuss it. And in my opinion, that's really what you want to do, is have that person that wants to buy that, to come back in and understand the conditions of the importance on it. It's right.
Yeah, it's
That makes sense.
sort of integrated and integrated. Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah, to just buy a property, sell, by the way, you got a special use permit or whatever, and not know the ins and outs of that. I think this is really important. Integrated.
I think it gives a chance for the public to be heard also. That's what they use for.
Sure.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to number 13, which is short-term rental and bed and breakfast, local laws number 1 and 2, 2023. This is discussion amongst the board. We had public hearings at our last meeting, and we heard from the public. We had a workshop meeting several months ago. It's been a topic of conversation, I think, at board meetings for, I'm gonna say, 6 months. And I guess I'm gonna suggest we go around the table, we each, one of us, maybe gives their thoughts on how or if they want to proceed.
Before we end, I want to once again state I have an adjacent neighbor looking to do a short-term rental. I have no conflict nor interest in that property. I'm able to act with impartial mind. And it also recently come to my attention that at least one resident is suggesting that we being involved drafting these proposal laws. I tried to draft them to benefit my business. That is inaccurate, and I'm stating that in a public meeting. It's inaccurate. It's not what I'm going to do. I am acting impartially on this. And part of me is aggravated to hear that. The other part of me is interested to find out what's going to be in the next meeting. We'll discuss this again. That's on here, obviously I was involved with this. I think, as we went into this, we really looked at how do we begin? How do we move forward? How do we come to a draft that's proposed to present to the rest of the town board, present to the public, and get feedback? What we tried to do was, first thing we did is we went to the Association of Towns and we got guidance of the Association of Towns. The Association of Towns said, if you recall, our previous law talked about the owner. Association of Towns said, do not regulate the owner, regulate the use. So we tried to go in and say, okay, what are we looking at what are we looking at here? So we came up looking at different town codes. And I mean, we went through, I don't want to list them all ad nauseum, but we went through a lot of neighboring town codes. I talked to a lot of officials. I talked to officials down in Canandaigua Watershed, South Bristol, Canisius, Victor, Walworth, Ontario, and got what their concerns are, what their experiences were as well before we do it. So we tried to define the use. And then once we had that use, we kind of figured out, we're talking about two different kind of rentals. Hosted rentals and unhosted rentals. So once we came up with that, we tried to look at the compatibility with the unhosted versus a hosted in each of our zoning districts. This is not about a property or two properties or anything. It's about those uses in our 6 or 7 zoning districts. Once we did that, we compared regulations using examples from other communities as a boilerplate. We talked with the CEO of enforceability. We sent it to our planning board to get their 2 cents, we sent it to individual planning board members to get their 2 cents, what they thought of it. We sent it on to our legal counsel to get the defensibility standpoint of it. And then here we are now. We put it before the town and put it before the town board. Perfect. I think I know there are some people with reservations, but that's how we came up with this, and we're going to discuss anything in here that
Yeah, I put a lot of work into this. So first of all, I want to express appreciation of that. My reservations from, and I've spoken about you, John. My reservations are, it lumps everyone together. And again, I could be wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like it lumps everyone together. The person that buys a property with the intention of renting it out as often as possible, and it's an investment for them. It's a business. And on the other hand, you've got, and we, especially at the hearing a couple of weeks ago, examples of, wow, we go to Hilton Head for 2 months out of the year. We'd like the opportunity to rent our place out, or, since it's that time of year and everyone's thinking about it, PGA is coming to town, can I rent my house out for a week? So unfortunately for me, that's kind of a concern that everyone is lumped into this bucket. It has to climb this steep hill, which again, it should be a steep hill. But I kind of see two different, and how do you, what do you do? 10 weeks a year? I'm not even sure I have a suggestion as to how we differentiate between the two, but I think they're two entirely different things.
and I hope we can have some back and forth of what we when we thought about this and what we came up with for this approach, because we did look at this with two different laws. The original one was a special use permit only. And now we're looking at a proposed operating permit and then a special use permit for the hosted. So we looked at that because we're trying to consider this without regulating the owner. Just regulating the use. So with the special use permit for the bed and breakfast, we took out the requirement of the owner being on site, and we call it the host being on site. So if somebody wishes to rent out their home while they're on vacation, we felt as though this was a compromise to where somebody could host it that is not down. Investment in the community that's not monetary, but is in the neighborhoods, these people in the grocery store and doesn't want to get the dirty looks, to be honest, and we all get those. That's
So
kind of how
I'm
we
not
thought.
following that. The owner doesn't have to be on site.
It needs to be a designated host. It does not have to be the owner.
So it could be a person who's just responsible for the property in absence of the. owner.
Yes. Now they would need to, the owner would identify that through the special use permit, you know, I'm gonna have a designated host. And
So that's not really a bed and breakfast. Though.
a bed and breakfast per state law is a single family residence. That's converted to host, yes. Am I speaking out of school? That's what we found. That's what the state law guidance is.
And I just want to make sure that everybody realizes that we're talking about a B and B here. We're not talking about a short-term rental. I just want to make sure everybody's.
No, but I thought what we were talking about was a house that somebody owns that wants to rent out to PGA.
And then what we said is, instead of trying to regulate the owner, we try to say, okay, we've got hosted versus unhosted. So what we were thinking was the compromise was originally it said the owner or somebody had 51% of ownership in there.
51%.
So what we did is we took that out to be, they can designate a host.
So the hosts have to be on site.
It says be on site, present with owner.
At all times.
Well, I could put an ankle bracelet on, I don't expect it.
So let's just carry this through. If somebody wanted to do a PGA. They obviously leave their home. They leave a phone number of where they're gonna be. It's,
They would designate a host.
they have to be there.
And this is why we were looking at this. I don't know, I could not come up with a way to do hosted versus unhosted for this PGA event without regulating the owner. If there's a proposed solution, I'm more than willing. So this is it's not even a living document, it's proposed draft. You know, I don't know how many hours we sat talking about this, and finally we were like, we need to get more input. You know, we have to get more input on this. Please.
Just if
I,
no, I'm sorry, just to know, I mean, just to answer Karen's question. It does define terms, and the terms hosted, the on-site presence of an owner and property during the duration of the rental period. What you're saying is the compromise was to say a host, not the owner.
Correct.
Yes, okay.
so in the proposed law, under B, it says the owner or a designated full-time host residing on the premises. Hosted is defined as on-site presence of the owner at the property during the duration of the rental period. That's what's in the proposed law.
No,
Come on,
we have a sentence in there that should be And if the owner is not a natural person, but the owner occupancy shall be satisfied so long as the host is a natural person owning at least 50% interest. That's off the old law, that should be stricken from this. I apologize that it made it through.
All the way down to the end of that sentence.
Yeah, all the way to the end of that sentence.
I think I'm sorry, Karen, did you have other comments you want to make? Anybody else? Cindy, anything?
No, no.
Okay.
This,
So I would just mention that, I think having it hosted, having a short-term rental in the hamlet. To me, conflicts with the letter that we received from the Mendon Community Business Association. So these folks are saying that they think that having a short-term rental, it would be advantageous to their business because their businesses are, for the most part, in the hamlet or very close to it. So if the people who have a short-term rental are in that area, I think they're more likely to visit those businesses. If I've got a short-term rental on Plains Road, I don't think I'm probably going to the hamlet for dinner or entertainment. I'm probably going somewhere on this side of town, maybe in another town to spend my money. So I quite frankly, it doesn't make sense to me. And maybe I'm just looking at it wrong, but it just doesn't make sense to me. Also, I would say that unhosted events, I think, are problematic with a short-term rental. I think we've seen that already, even though we've only had a couple of situations. What I've talked to a few people, emailed. I mean, when the house next door to you, not the one on the other side of town, the house next door to you sells to an LLC. There's somebody different in there every week, every weekend. You don't know them. You don't know you. Owner, you don't even know probably because it's in an LLC, and I don't know when you call them who's gonna answer and what they're gonna say. To me, that's not a residential district. That's a business. And if you're for businesses in the business zone, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't feel like this community. When I go down East Henrietta Road, I look around, and nothing against the town of Henrietta, but wow, there's why you need zoning. There's a fast food restaurant, a hairdresser, a residence, a bank, it's like everything's been thrown into a pot and shaken. This does not affect renting your house month to month. If somebody wants to go to Florida, for instance, for 2 or 3 months, rent their house out, they can still do that. There's nothing keeping that. And I've seen this over and over again and heard it from different people, is that town of Mendon is outlawing short-term rentals. Our zoning does not affect the village of Honey Falls. And the way it's written is we're including the business district. So obviously,
I'm sorry, and the industrial district.
and yes, thank you, and the industrial district, which is basically this means West Main Street outside the village going down towards Monroe Street. That block. So my opinion is obviously that I was heavily involved with the draft form of this, is that I feel like because we split the short-term rentals and the B&Bs into 2 separate categories, I feel like we're allowing things that make sense, but we're also maintaining the character of the town. And I would just say that you know, when this whole thing started a few years ago, I personally thought this is not gonna be a problem for us. We don't have an attraction. We don't have Niagara Falls. You know, there's nothing here to draw lots and lots of people. And, now I see that it is affecting us. I mean, it certainly affected all these communities in the Finger Lakes. And they have, many of them have restrictions on short-term rentals because we borrow most of the language from them. The Association of Town held up the short-term rental law in Paradise and said, here, this is the best one we've got. Use this as a template. And we did. And already the town of Canada is thinking about making some changes in theirs.
I also want to say, I looked at the town of Victor general code. Town of Victor general code says all unhosted short-term rentals are not allowed in any zoning districts, and I just verified that again this weekend. I did not call the code enforcement officer to verify it, but that's the code that's online. So I heard some things in the public hearings that Victor allows this. I'm not 100% positive. I really don't want to go chasing to find if they do. I also heard in the public hearings that the bed and breakfast is not nearly as restrictive as the short-term rentals. Short-term rental is a standalone operating permit. So everything that is in a special use permit that goes with this bed and breakfast ends up being about 6 or 7 pages once you put it all together. That's why the short-term rentals is longer, because we had to add definitions and bring out all the requirements of parking, of other requirements that are in here that are included in special use permits. I talked with the Canandaigua watershed inspector, Tyler Hole. He deals with a lot of short-term rentals all around the lake. And he told them what his concerns were. And his concerns, he said, you know, they stack people. If you have a bedroom, next thing you know, you will have 2 bunk beds in that bedroom and a futon. So now you have a bedroom that's 5 people, and they'll get there's 17 people in there. And I asked him, how do you approach that? And he said, if you are on sewers, you need to approach that with fire code. If you are on septic system, you approach that with the capacity of the septic system, and you limit that capacity to what that septic system or their well can handle. That is the way that you do it. That is why that you see that in there. I've also heard some things about parking spaces, anything of that. We considered all of this, and our zoning code has area variances and use variances built into it for the ZBA to review it. So what we have in here, 1 parking space per bedroom, you know, this many people. There's mechanisms in our code for specific properties if it's too restrictive, but we can't look at our code based off of 1 property. We have to look at our code as the greater RA5 district, RA2, RA1, RS30, and that's how. And then the ZBA can look at specific properties. With regards to the number of boards to review that, this is no different than any of our other permits. We have a 5-week period for special use permits that go in, and it goes to HPC, it goes to the ECB, you know, and if it has to go to the ZBA, it does, the planning board as well. And I think our compromise on that is for the operating permit is to have 1 public hearing in front of the town board. Not all those are hearings. They are favorable or unfavorable reports. That I thought that was what our compromise was on that.
I just would echo what you said about the zoning board of appeals. I mean, if I want to put a shed up on my property, 6 inches from the property line, I'm gonna need a variance. I go to the zoning board of appeals. If I'm operating short-term rental and there's some variance in there that I want exception to, that's when I go to that zoning board of appeals and I say, hey, I'd like relief from number B that says I need this many parking spots, or I can only have this many bedrooms and things like that. That's what the zoning board of appeals is for. I mean, it's the law doesn't allow it, and you go in and you ask for it, or in some cases you ask for a use variance. And that's why the law is set up like.
So I have a question, Brent or John, whoever wants to answer this. Going back to Karen's thought with the PGA. I don't want to rent my house out. But let's say I did want to rent it out. I could apply for a special use permit,
Hosted site, yes,
hosted site.
would be a special use permit.
So I would have to either be on site or a designated person would have to be on site.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's, and like I, not to beat this horse, but that's the only way I could see to differentiate the uses
Right.
without regulating the owners, which Association of Towns and our legal council said do not do.
Right.
Don't forget too, that some of these places in our neighboring communities, they're being rented for an activity like the PGA. Sometimes are rented by a corporation or a hospitality area. There's not even anybody sleeping there. They're just having hors d'oeuvres, fire open, bringing in their customers, clients, that kind of thing. That's very frequent in these types of situations.
This is an example, but let's say Tom and I move out of town. I hope you don't mind if I take on you.
Right.
Want to go hang out at the Mendon Carnival. All right, we go down, we hang out at the Mendon Carnival, meet a couple of buddies, come back, raise hell, the cops get called on us. It's in Tom's name. The owner through Airbnb or VRBO says, I am never renting out to Tom again. What? This is next year. Let's go back. Oh, Tom, I can't run it. No problem, Tom. I'll put it in my name. Now it's in my name. We go back and raise hell. Unhosted site. Who was gonna recognize us with a hosted site? They're gonna remember us and. Guys, either you clean it up and once again, that's an extreme case, but that's an example of what I'm thinking. When it's hosted, you have that investment that's not financial. You remember that.
I also have heard from people who have a significant amount of property that you can't even see from the road. And they're saying, well, why can't I have somebody rent on a short term basis? That's another, I mean, we have a lot of properties in Mendon that have significant amounts of acreage. But we're restricting this to everybody. And I think what we heard at the last meeting was that maybe we should be looking at a compromise.
But could those people get the special use? permit? Could they apply for the special use? permit?
With a designated host.
So, to answer your question, Karen, I think it's not necessarily who's right next door to you, but what, when I think of, we've got some roads that are cul-de-sacs that almost back right up to. And so it's not necessarily somebody on your street, but it could be somebody further over on the next street. That type of thing. So, I think that's something to keep in mind as the discussion continues to move. And I certainly am more than willing to discuss, listen, consider any compromises that anybody on the board
I don't really understand the RA, what that means. So if you could tell me why you restricted the RA 5 or
RA1 there.
yeah, RA1, RA2, RA5, and RS30. What is that?
Because we're looking. What does that mean? Yeah, RA5 those are our zoning districts. So we looked at uses permitted uses within those zoning districts. and what is compatible with those existing uses. And we have, you know, a commercial use within that zoning district is not compatible. We don't have a lot of commercial uses. And I
We have agriculture.
well, and you know, that's a very excellent point, because I did a lot of research on this as well. Because I've heard that we're restricting agricultural breakfast as well. So I did research. By no means am I an expert on agricultural. Agricultural bed and breakfasts are farm to table. So if you're not hosting that, who is preparing the food? Who is going out and working this land to prepare this agricultural bed and breakfast if it's not hosted? So I would say that an agricultural bed and breakfast would be covered under our bed and breakfast special use permit. I've heard this, it's gotta be close to 4 years now. I have yet to see an application come in for an agricultural bed and breakfast. I'm all for it, that I think this is how we are gonna save our open space. One of the ways that we would save our open space is through an agricultural bed and breakfast. That's gotta be hosted. Who's gonna? Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't, if I get spirit.
No.
Anything else that anybody wants to discuss or share?
I do want to share one thing. I was doing a little bit of research. There are some towns that say they charge a fee, the same as a motel would charge a fee, a tax on their rentals.
There are, yes.
I have one more thing I want to ask. How are we going to police this? Because we clearly don't have a system right now.
Well, it would depend on what the law was. All this was vetted through the code enforcement officer, CEO. And I know from text and writing that we have, obviously that person would have to come in. And if these laws were adopted, you have to come in for a special use permit or an operating permit. So that's how, and then that's how how the ball starts rolling. So to speak.
We've had a moratorium for the last few months.
Right.
And I thought we heard at the last meeting that there had been usage happening. There's no, nothing has happened to that person.
I would defer to the town attorney. Sorry, Shelley. No, how to answer.
I'm not sure I know what the question is.
How do we police this? We've had a moratorium for a few months. And we've had someone abuse that moratorium. And we heard, I don't know this for a fact. We heard it several times and we have not done anything about it.
Well, you would put a penalty into the moratorium.
We did. It was $2,000.
You enforced.
Who enforces that?
The code enforcement officer.
But it hasn't happened.
Well, you need to talk to code enforcement.
Well, he has sent letters to the people, only cease and desist. And if they have continued to operate, we've already appeared in court with at least one of these people. So I mean,
Here in Florida,
we
I'm
haven't-
not 100%.
we haven't done anything. We've pursued it. To the extent of the law.
It is important.
Obviously, if we're gonna issue something, we need to have.
Absolutely, and I think Tom made the point back during the moratorium, you know, our fee structure is like $100. If they're getting 350, not,
It's no big deal.
it's no big deal, but you know, we try to put in here of making neighboring properties aware that it's an affidavit that we contacted them, putting rules, which rules are we got speed limit signs on the highway, you know what I mean? So, but you know, the rules are there. And another thing that we did is we're looking at this operating permit is to have it's renewable annually for up to 2 years. And they have to come back before the town board, a public hearing. And I know that there was some dispute in here about the town board can, you know, with prejudice, disapprove. You know, if somebody checks off all these boxes, but the neighbors are on because they're disrupting the character of the community, that's why we want them back. We want to know the ability for the neighbors to let us know.
Let's also think about people who have property. There's really not any neighbors that are right near them. How do you? And what, I mean, just because one person next door to you doesn't want something to happen, I think that's kind of hard.
Well, not one person, I think, well, that would be up to the board to use our common sense and our judgment. Is this one person? There's gonna be somebody that's upset that the sun came up.
Right,
This morning,
exactly.
and it's that person's fault.
Exactly.
So it's gonna be up to, and we have noise ordinances that. Building department makes these calls more than I want to know. And I found that they get complaints. I won't want to say on a daily basis, but definitely weekly. And when it comes to acreage, my apprehension of my body language is there's a farmland is a lot different than 50 acres of trees. You can, when we had, this is off a little bit on a different subject, but when we had a special use permit for the winery come in, the people that were worried about the noise were on Taylor Extension. The people were over on Mile Square Road. They were talking, they said it's because it's all open farmland. And those are the people that will hear it the most. They were complaining about the old Saxby's auction. That they could hear the Sax, and then the complaints from the Saxby's auction of the parking used to come through all the time. So I mean, that's my apprehension of saying 50 acres is enough. It's 5 acres of dense trees, sometimes it's a lot better than 50 acres. So, there is a way to do this without regulating the owner.
Right, and that's
Okay.
we can't regulate just one person. This has to be,
Yes,
this
yes.
needs to be fair.
And that's why we went with this. RA1, RA5, RA2, because that's a very broad. Looking.
Speaking of
Makes sense.
enforcement mechanism, I mean, what occurs to me, let's say we pass as is. So listening to your house as an Airbnb while you're in Florida for 2 months for 5 of those weeks. Listening enforcement, if someone just says, guys on the town board, a bunch of stuffy heads, and I'm just gonna do it.
Even read Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm just gonna do it.
You're good. Number one, the code enforcement officer and his support staff are gonna be monitoring these sites for these Airbnbs, which they've been doing for a long time. And if they're found in violation, they'll get a letter, and if they don't respond or do anything about it, then they're gonna get ticketed, and they'll be put into court and asked to explain their actions in front of a judge, right? Wrong, so, no, that's right. Okay. It's pretty cut and dried as far as how that works. No different than if, you use noise or that kind of thing. I mean, nobody's trying to keep anybody from having a graduation party. If maybe your child wants to get married in your backyard or any of that kind of thing. That's not what this is about. This is about commercial enterprise, residential zone, as far as I'm concerned. And I do think, and I mentioned this at one of our meetings, I think for most people, their homes is probably one of their largest expenses. And I wouldn't want to do anything that reduces the value of someone's home. In other words, if I've got I've got multiple short-term rentals. Does that affect my property value?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's something to take into consideration.
I mean, I also kind of look at it as, I live in a. And by Mendon standards is a dense neighborhood, Mendon Farms. But if my neighbor opened up a landscaping business and he just. So all of a sudden he starts storing building materials there, and then he has 2 dump trucks in the yard, and then. Every morning, 5 cars park in the streets while they take the dump trucks out to a job. That. Is in violation of the zoning. Just as. Something, just as. A short-term rental, I guess, would, especially if it's business.
Right, well, that's what we're saying, business.
Yeah.
And as I forgive me, I don't remember which public hearing or if it was a resident that I talked to on the street. But I heard a very excellent point of this, all have family, all have graduation parties, reunions and all this stuff. When it's next door to a commercial breakfast, it's every, I shouldn't say the night breakfast, commercial short-term rental, it's every weekend, it's a family reunion. Every weekend, it's graduation.
I think we should go to Mendon. You and I.
So we're gonna move on to number 14, which is Spring Park opening signage and rules. This is to consider the opening date of May 31st, 2023 at 2, I'm sorry, not May 31st, that's a typo. Pardon me. May 9th. 20. Yeah.
Let's make a motion to approve the opening date of May 30. Or what did you say? 2023 at 2 p.m.
So what, before anybody.
Second.
Thank you. Before we go any further, everyone has possibilities of movements on there. And I don't know if anybody, these are ones that we lifted off of other spray parks in and around us. And I don't know if anybody has any changes. We've got hours down there. We have kinds of rules on there. The only one that I question is the person's over the age of 60.
Yes.
Must be in
Mine too.
the.
That was confusing to me. Well, the whole, may I steal this from you? I was looking at my phone.
To me, that says that if I'm a teenager and I'm at those soccer fields. And the
You
game
can't do it.
is, and I'm 16 or over, I can't go over
Yeah.
there unless I've got my little brothers. That's the way I interpret. And I don't
think we want to do
I
that.
personally, I'm not in favor of that.
I'm not in favor of it.
Yes,
I think,
all the other rules will take care of any disparaging behavior. That's,
And I was serious when I wrote. I think we have to have fun. This is on the don't do. We have to do something that's having a great time.
You just printed out a bucket.
Yeah,
No, we can edit that, that's fine.
so you're gonna take this one out that says person's over. I'll be honest with you, when I first read that, I thought, this is a little creepy to me.
Well, I was trying to say, you don't want to be creepy. That was the
But
intent.
it was confusing to me.
It was confusing, yes, and because it was on some of the other signs, I wanted the board to consider it.
Yep,
I don't
okay.
say it in an opinion, but I want.
So we're just going to eliminate.
I agree with your opinion.
And I do think it's children under 12 must be accompanied by an adult. I personally don't like the word adult and then in parentheses from grade 16. I would prefer to say any children under age 12 must be accompanied.
Yeah,
by
I agree.
How about a
Responsible person over age 16.
Yeah, I like that better. That makes sense.
Because I don't consider anybody at 17 an adult.
No.
And that, I think, you know, other communities have flushed these things out. So, yeah.
Right.
I'm glad you got the word worst play in there. I've been reading it my whole life about exactly.
For bringing to my attention that this was at the very top in red.
Sorry. And you know how to put it.
Look at I go, oh yeah, there it is. I was just looking at the red stuff.
Obviously, the only to be on there is direct line to supervisor's office. The voicemails that I get, I don't know how this happens, but it ends up coming to me as an email. So and I don't get an alert or anything like that. It's not, I guess my point is, it's not gonna be waiting if something happens on a Friday night. It's not gonna be Monday before I'm gonna know about it. Right, that's my point.
And I think you're setting up.
Speaking of,
Yes, there's gonna be an individual who's gonna go there every day to check everything over, clean the bathrooms, make sure they're adequately supplied. And we have a first aid kit that we're gonna have just some basic first aid, ice pack, and
Somebody on staff.
not us.
What about contractors?
no, is there gonna be anybody there?
They're gonna be cleaning the bathroom and.
Employee of the town?
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
I have to say, it looks bad.
Yes.
It looks absolutely, it is absolutely beautiful. And I was wondering if people who have commented on Facebook that they've never heard about it. It's amazing. Yes, they've never heard about it. I don't know if they've ever heard of it.
It's the number of people that don't know where some road
That's what you like.
is. Anything else, the times, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., is that all right with everyone? Obviously, nobody's there, the water's out.
Would, I mean, I'm just thinking. Like this, the days get longer, I mean, would it be, let's say, sunset? I mean,
The doors are set a lot.
okay, okay, that's good, no, that's fine, that's fine.
So the bathroom doors automatically lock at 8 o'clock.
I should have a sign that says that, so that there's no children.
Oh my God.
Okay, so-
Yes, so it's across the line out. Thinking we should have a little sign somewhere that says, there's a button on here to get the kids, however we say that
Yeah.
correctly.
So
And our grand opening though is like June 11th is.
That's the,
that's what we're talking about for the military memorial. The situation is that we wanted to make sure that the family, the 3 servicemen who were tragically lost their lives that day, that they could all be there.
Right.
And we went around about almost all 365 days to find a day that would be appropriate for them to be there. So that's a little later in the agenda, but that's why there's, and we didn't want to wait until then,
Right.
because obviously we could get some good weather.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So feeling on the ribbon cutting.
Yes, 29th at 2 o'clock, yes. And I believe that Teresa,
Yeah, I know.
she Tagama will be there with her children to come.
Oh, good, okay. And are we going to have that publicized? Have we invited the.
Well,
Yeah,
didn't want to publicize it until the town board approved this.
Right.
It's this tonight.
Like, let the TV stations know, and because I think it's important for everybody to see.
I mean, I think especially with the military memorial dedication, that especially needs.
Yeah.
A lot of publication.
Yes.
This needs some, I think, in my opinion, local.
Yes, I do.
Right.
I agree.
Okay.
People.
Yes. No, you didn't, oh, no.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Next, we'll move on to number 15, military, Spray Park Military Memorial Budget Amendment. Spray Park Military Memorial.
Second,
So the change is that we would need to use another $83,000 in additional ARPA money. This is the money that came down from the federal government to the town of Mendon based on population. Each municipality, towns and villages received it. They received about $700,000. The money can be used for anything for the public good. They have in the budget to use $300,000, so this would increase that amount. There's several reasons why, and those reasons are, Brent, feel free to jump in here, but we had all kinds of septic issues, from redesigns to changing the location to the DEC giving us granting us permission to them taking it away and then re-granting us that. So we have had more than in that process.
Just the construction environment, the cost of materials right now is just. Yeah, I've never seen it going up like this.
So between the time we first received a budget, you received a budget for this project, things have gone up. Obviously, the original contracts are, we're not, those haven't changed. The original contracts that the board approved, but yeah, we do have some other items that have caused us to make sure we do it right, I'm gonna say. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next, we'll move on to.
I'd like to make a motion to purchase 6 picnic tables and chairs from account A 62.411, exceed $5,039.10.
getting 6 picnic tables.
I'll second that.
Oh, sorry,
Go ahead. Sorry.
comment, question. 6 picnic tables and chairs to go with those 6.
The picnic tables have a bench.
Okay, thank you.
They're all in one.
So the chairs are separate.
They're gonna add around.
They're like an around.
And will we have them in time?
Yes.
Because we're voting on it today and we've got 3 weeks to get. Okay.
I'll be actually physically going to get them.
Okay.
You don't have to pay any shot. There's anything for you to help out for me to run down.
I think it's a good description of the chairs. I don't know if the other board members are aware of the Adirondack chairs. That you're looking at.
Sure. They're red. Picnic tables are red, white, and blue. You look at the building, red, white, and blue. The gold star ties the military memorial into the spray park. As you know, Gold Star families are someone who lost someone in the service of our country. And that's,
They're made from recycled materials.
yes, they're all recyclable.
All wood, maintenance free, and they're washed.
And they're colored through, so if they get scratched.
That I've seen.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? All in favor? Any opposed? Number 17, military memorial dedication, dust off.
Get motion.
I'll say.
Oh, I've to a who is going to tables or the 10 chairs, the 25 chairs and the tent will hold 75 and 100 people. Obviously, it's like a seat more than 75. They'll set it up, tear it down. And the lunch would be at invitation only at the community center for the families of the 3 servicemen and the Legion members and a few other dignitaries, I'll call them. To be catered by HFMP, not to exceed $1,000 from account number 81010.
Yeah, it is.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, we have a second.
So,
Okay. Great. Any other comments or questions or concerns?
A lot of discussion about this. With a somber. Forgive me, but not.
Sure.
I think we've done a good job. Sure. Working with John Avery a lot on this. It's got a lot of connections that he's brought in for the National Guard, Army, Air National Guard. Give a dedication. I think it's.
Each family will have one. That. Anything else? And I echo John Ingrid's done a tremendous job communicating with the families and working with Brent and I to move this forward. All in
and
favor?
we're working with Mary Taylor too, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
And in the violence hanging the structure.
Yeah.
He's been great.
He's 18 months into it,
Yeah.
leaving office.
He's not giving up.
No,
Before June, but no average. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Next, Monroe County Human Resource Meeting Attendance.
I make a motion to allow Kelly Connolly to attend the Monroe County HR meeting on June 8th, 2023. At the Arundel Point Community Center. There's no fee and mileage will be charged to A 1310.410.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Number 19, Dave Lochner, Softball League. This is for a field request.
Second.
Any discussion? Favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next, number, letter of credit or release for Mendon Green.
Make a motion to release a partial letter of credit number 5 for Mendon Green in the amount of $370,018.55. Marathon Engineering and Labella recommended the release.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
How far along are they? I don't percentage wise.
Don't know.
Been up there a few times and they've rolled it in the drain. I know you're not the construction inspection or the construction observer, but you haven't seen anything that's alarming.
Yeah, there was some talk about the sewers and putting the roads in and the joints not fitting right, or so that was between the engineer. Didn't make it up there today.
The oh, we don't have a
So you
second.
gonna say?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next, number 21 is the USDA New York European Cherry Fruit Fly Program.
So moved.
Any discussion? Favor? Any opposed? Something else coming in that needs something that, you know, this are not murder ones.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
22 is associates in employee assistance. This is for a contract for 1 year.
Moved. Yeah. Second,
Any discussion?
who is the employee assistance provider?
That's their name.
Employee assistance program.
Associates and employee assistants.
Should be in your pack.
Oh, okay. Just curious, not that I need.
So these are all the New York State mandated trainings that the employees receive.
Well,
Employees.
it's. The services are listed in their letter. So,
Let's see that.
there's short-term counseling.
Is this available to everyone in, that's employed
Sure, there's flyers and.
at the town?
posters up at-
Part-time, full-time, everything?
Sure.
Okay.
It's. First paragraph up there that says. Employee count is 57.
Right.
That obviously includes part-time.
There it
Okay.
is.
Great,
Oh, you found it.
yeah.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next, we have tennis courts on Summer Road.
So moved.
So when the tennis courts on Summer Road were redone a few years ago. Folks who said they just wanted to be able to play tennis, they didn't want to have pickleball lines on there. So we didn't put them on. Put pickleball lines on the 3 tennis courts at Mendon Center. So the tennis court, or not tennis courts, I guess, the courts at Mendon Center have lines for both. The pickleball fans. We live in town, Mendon, like a split lines on some. At the time when we did it, tennis folks said they didn't want that.
Pickleball's become very, very popular.
It is very, I don't disagree whatsoever. I believe that you have a letter from. Yes, regarding this, and obviously it's gonna be an expense to have somebody put the lines on there. And then there will be complaints from the people who enjoy tennis.
Just to get a quote of what
That's just, I'll get a quote.
Okay.
We used to go play tennis on, right? Oh, actually, even if,
We get a quote to know what it would be to put it back. Just tennis as well.
no, you can play tennis.
I know, I get that, but how many tennis courts do we have in the town right now that are public? Right?
That aren't the town amendments.
No, they're the town amendments. 5. Right, and 3 of them have pickleball lines on them.
Correct.
And originally, when we set up Summer Road, the tennis people, the people who use those, and I said those were left.
It's
Correct.
It's not changed. It's a change, but this is, you know, once we paint the line on there, we might get an uproar if people are not aware. I mean, the people, people have.
Yes. The lines. So that should-
I'm not proficient in either one of them, and I don't have a personal opinion, but there I called over to the school and I took the athletic director. I believe he told me there are 7 courts at the high school. 6 of them are meant for tennis and pickleball, and 1 is meant for tennis only. The one that they have meant for tennis only is for the number 1 seed to play. And they are open to the public during non-school hours, as long as there is not a scheduled match going on. So the I'm over. At First Park. I do not know if those are open to the public or not. Last time I paid attention to them, they didn't look like they were in a very good condition. Here, get a quote.
Yeah.
So we'll get a quote and I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Property maintenance, 19 Wyndham Hill and 424 Cheese Factory Road. So moved.
Second,
Any discussion?
this is properties that haven't been cared for, is, I'm assuming.
Correct.
Okay.
One of the properties, there hasn't been anybody living in there for approximately 2 years. And the other property, there is somebody who lives in there to the best of my knowledge, but has not had any property maintenance. I think in about a year. So, you know, we've had neighbors complain, we don't have anything in town law about property maintenance, although we did find in New York State town law. That, and then there's, that would be, we would hire an outside contractor to come in and do it. They would, we would pay that contractor, we would add it onto their tax bill. So, for the one person who maybe hasn't paid their tax bill in some time,
Oh, dear.
I wanted to make sure that we would be made whole. We found out that, Michelle, that we would,
Yeah, I'm waiting for complete confirmation, but Sue thought yes.
yes, so. Well, this happened back in the, say 2010, when there were a lot of zombie homes around.
Right.
The town of Arundecoy, Monroe County said, no, if you're gonna go out and knock down houses, mow grass, things like that, we're not gonna make you whole. And so the town of Arundecoy sued Monroe County. And by the time it got to court, the supervisor from the town of Arundecoy was now the county executive.
Oh, dear.
So he, the county lost the case and the town of Arundecoy won the case. It must to find out. So I don't feel like residents are going to be paying for this service. And but then to me, that's the important thing. The one that's been vacant for 2 years, hopefully. The bank and the county will probably sell it at auction in the not too distant future, and hopefully somebody buys it and cleans it up and turns it around, because it's
This a, with an expected one-time thing, or is it gonna be? I mean, if the home's been vacant for 2 years, are we gonna have to do it again in a couple of months?
I think we're gonna have to.
How often? This is the first time I recall this coming up, and I've been here a long time. This has happened.
It's happened in the past, and we have told people and persuaded people to take care of their property, and in most cases, except for the one at Cheese Factory, it's successful.
We as a neighborhood paid to have someone property mowed all summer long because it was downgrading our neighborhood. So,
I agree.
I mean, it's important to people because you could get snakes and all kinds of things if you don't take care of it.
And there's a big mow, may thing going on. So, you know, there's people with a lot of different thoughts. This is absent and delinquent. This isn't somebody who feels that they don't want to mow it, maybe because it affects the butter.
Right.
All right, any other comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Town board meeting schedule.
Make a motion to change the date of July regular town board meeting from July 10th, to July 17th. 2023.
We did the schedule. I quite honestly didn't think about this, but the 4th of July backs up against the July tenth, that week that generally people tend, highway departments, motives that week. It just, to me, makes sense to move it down a week.
Sure.
Everybody's
Tough to get vouchers. Very tough to get vouchers.
It would be.
Is that your mom?
It might be.
I think it might be.
It may be.
No, he's doing nine July.
All
right.
Anything,
It's June.
He's doing nine.
so,
Yeah.
so
September, right.
we got a second, any other discussion? All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? I know someone's been waiting for this. Sorry to keep you so long, but there's a lot to discuss tonight. If you'd like to comment, please provide your name and address. Limit your comments to 3 minutes or less until everyone's had a chance to speak. Andy?
I am over 16, I have no kids, but I wanted to go put in with some hot day, without being against the rules or even properly.
The way I read it, you had to be with each other.
but we changed that.
Anyone else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
That's well.